South Africa has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending next month's summit of BRICS leaders in Johannesburg in person. The decision has resolved a potential dilemma for South Africa, this over whether to execute an International Criminal Court warrant for his arrest if he did come. Now, Russia will instead be represented by its Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Johannesburg summit, alongside the leaders of Brazil, India, China and South Africa. Now, remember, the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, had issued this warrant against Putin in March this year, and South Africa would have been obliged to arrest Putin for alleged war crimes by Russia during its invasion of Ukraine. And in more news on Vladimir Putin, the head of Britain's MI6 has now claimed that the Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin did indeed strike a deal with Putin to end his advance on Moscow during the failed rebellion of June 24. In fact, the MI6 chief Richard Moore has also urged Russians who oppose the invasion of Ukraine to spy for Britain, saying others had already done so since the war began. Meanwhile, Russia has launched a second night of air attacks on Ukraine's port city of Odessa, as well as raids on the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, while there were also reports of attacks in the Russian-annexed Crimean Peninsula. Remember, 6 weeks since Ukraine launched a counter-offensive in the east and south, Russia is mounting a ground offensive of its own in the northeast. Here are some reactions.
Pretoria has gotten a get-out-of-jail-free card. The law was unequivocal, both domestically and internationally, around South Africa's obligations. They would have had to arrest Putin had he arrived. Failure to do so would have landed Pretoria in a whole lot of hot water, not only in terms of the rule of law, but also in terms of the reaction from the business community and the international community. And so this outcome allows the Ramaphosa government to maintain its position as a government that respects the rule of law.
The assumption being made is that BRICS, that Russia is kind of holding is a very strong partner in the BRICS. I think that becomes now part of a narrative that's seeking to try and create this kind of conjecture that the BRICS is weakened. The BRICS is going to continue.
Right. I'm also joined in by my guest today, Edward P. Joseph, who's a senior fellow at the SIAIS Foreign Policy Institute. Thank you so much, Edward, for joining in. Let's talk about South Africa's decision now. For a country that has so far been known as being pro-Russia, will this now sort of redeem the Ramaphosa government of respecting the rule of law?
Yes. I think that that's exactly correct. And I think that this is a tremendous blow to Russia, to Vladimir Putin. And I think it's a very important signal, not just in South Africa, but across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This is a very important signal. South Africa is an important country, a leader in this informal organization known as the BRICS, and one of these countries that has had traditionally close relations with Russia refused to condemn this very dangerous, catastrophic, and unprovoked invasion by Russia against Ukraine. And now you have South Africa itself at this moment where it has a leadership role in this organization of the BRICS, absolutely refusing to allow Vladimir Putin to attend, forcing Vladimir Putin to send his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, instead. And so this is a very important signal. One other thing, Akansha, here, very important, is this now sets the precedent that any country that is a member of the International Criminal Court, which was negotiated within the United Nations, is obligated to follow South Africa's lead here and either arrest Vladimir Putin or tell him simply not to come. So what this does, this increases the isolation of Vladimir Putin, and this exposes just how weak a leader he actually is. Please.
Right. Edward, much was being pinned on Putin's presence at the BRICS, especially when it comes to de-dollarization. Will Putin's absence end possibilities to find a currency that could rival the US dollar through this summit?
Yes, this damages very much the ambitions for the BRICS summit. You don't have Putin there in person. That presence, that economy, this is unfortunately for the Russian people, this is an economy that is undeveloped, that relies almost entirely on fossil fuels under Putin, who's failed miserably to develop his country's economy. And so that economy, that aspect of fossil fuel support for whatever it is the BRICS want to do in terms of developing some kind of alternative currency, however unrealistic that actually is, that's now very much compromised here. And again, if you're leader of one of these other countries, why would you want to be further invested in a leader of a country that's as problematic as Russia and a leader as problematic as Vladimir Putin? You're just bringing negativity on yourself. Now, of course, some countries, for example, India, are in a position to exploit this and get oil at lower cost than otherwise. And in this situation, Prime Minister Modi and others can exploit Putin's weakness even more and ask for even more favorable terms, seeing how weak of a leader he is. So that's the reality here.
Let's see if that happens, Edward. But let me talk about Prigozhin now. The Wagner chief has been reportedly seen in public for the first time since the mutiny, and considering what claims have been made by the MI6 chief, has Wagner now become the Russian autocrat's Achilles heel?
This is certainly a extremely difficult continuing problem for Vladimir Putin. And I should point out here, it's connected with his inability to come to South Africa because, according to reports, it was easier to persuade the proud Putin to stay home because he still has domestic difficulties that he has to manage in the wake of this embarrassing mutiny. And reportedly, he, on the day of this mutiny, Prigozhin used his advance there, this brazen challenge to Putin's authority, to the authority of the Russian military, to get some type of commitments out of Vladimir Putin. This is a show of weakness. That we have to remember here, this is not a democracy. This is a autocracy bordering on a dictatorship in which power is vested in Vladimir Putin. And what's the problem when you have that type of autocracy? When you show weakness, when you show that others can challenge you, the entire illusion starts to collapse. And then you start to invite challenges to your authority from other areas. You don't have the balancing factors of institutions that you do in democracies. So this is Vladimir Putin is in a very weak position here. The fact that he did not severely crack down on Prigozhin the way he claimed he would, everyone in Russia, you can bet, is aware of this and is now recalculating how much they want to invest themselves, their own livelihoods, perhaps their own lives, in loyalty to such a weakened president, who also, of course, has taken Russia into a worse catastrophe that it's seen in decades. Please.
It's interesting, Edward, that you talk about how this has weakened Putin's position, because that's exactly what I want to ask you next. A think tank that is called the Institute for the Study of Wars has noted that Russian troops are not obeying Putin, and that is also creating a problem for the Russian president. Is insubordination by Russia's commanders spreading just beyond the Wagner mutiny?
Well, I would defer to the Institute of the Study of War. I haven't read that report, but we have seen just recently a very popular Russian general was removed. A general who was commanding on the front in Ukraine, he was removed, and then he went public and lashed out about the fact that he was removed. And all because he said that he told the truth about mistakes that were happening in Russia's strategy. And so it's plausible what they're saying in this report. I can't state whether the facts that they cite for this, but it's certainly plausible. And it is illustration of the disarray within Russia as it attempts to counter the Ukrainian this counteroffensive. Now, we should quickly point out here, in case people say, well, we don't see Ukraine making all this advancing against a defensive line that is dug in, that has had months to put mines, to dig trenches, to create obstacles, makes it very difficult for any infantry force to try to advance. That type of progress, all military experts know, is very difficult and takes time. But Ukraine has defined tactical objectives that, if it achieves on the ground, could expose and cut off, for example, Crimea from water it desperately needs.
We'll have to leave it at that, Edward.
What happens on the battlefield.
My apologies, we are running short of time and we'll have to quickly move over. But thank you so much for giving me those precious insights.